I can create, if I like, so I can get these 3 drum tracks and I can create a drums master channel, which is not only allows me to globally move the drums up and down, but it's also a signal routing maneuver. So it allows me to bring all the drum signals together into one pair of channels, and I can process that stereo pair of channels and it'll be across all of the drums, right? So I'll show you how to do that. And this is called subgrouping, but it's using something called folder tracks. So I've selected my 3 drum tracks here in red, and I just go to move to new folder. And then it asks me what type of folder. I'm going to use a routing folder, and then I'm going to call this drums master, MST. So I'm going to create that, and then what it's done, it's taken these 3 tracks, it's created a new bus called drums master, and then it's created a new aux input which it's set to drums master, so that all of these 3 tracks are now coming down this aux submaster, and I can solo that. I can collapse this folder track by clicking on the folder icon. So all my drums are now coming out of this stereo pair called drums master. So you think of it like conceptually, I've got 3 source tracks, all feed, it's like a master fader, but it's a sub master fader, and it's the drums submaster. I'm just going to write a note to myself here, drums submaster, right? So I know what this is, right? I can change the color of this, if I want it to be red, because I got my drums colored red, I just double click on this color field down the bottom and I just make it a shade of red. All right, so that's now a submaster for my drums. I can collapse those. I might want to do the same thing for my bass, so I'll shift click my 2 bass parts and I will right click on one of them and go move to new folder, and then I'm going to again choose routing folder, and I'm just going to call this bass master, bass MST. Okay, and it will do the same thing, right? So this is now a master for my bass. Let's go where the bass is.
When I was 17.
So you can see here I've got my bass and my drums now under submasters, and I can solo those submasters. And then I'll do the same thing with my synths. So shift click all the synths, the green, and then right click on them and go move to new folder, and I'm going to call this synth master. Same deal, it's going to make that green so it's easier to look at. Okay. So I guess you can see this process here where I'm sort of reducing the full set of tracks and bringing them under these submasters, which group chunks of tracks together. So the drums, the bass, the synths are all coming up under these. And so what it does allow me to do is everything that you would expect once the signals are all flowing through a stereo pair of channels. It means I can balance the whole thing as a group. So
When I was 17, nicotine loving had me rushing on the night. I try to hold it back, take a breath, looking at old pictures on the floor.
So I can balance at this level. So this is like a mid-level of the mix, where I'm bringing all of these, forest of individual tracks up to a sort of a mid-level where there are groups and chunks of tracks, and then I can ride them together. A really good example for this would be, this one's already a stem, but let's imagine the original of this. Vera Blue goes in there and she does like 20 tracks of backing vocals. Maybe it's a 3-part harmony and it's tripled and whatever, and you just wind up with this huge forest of backing vocals that are all these layers and just going back and thickening and doubling and so on. We don't really want to deal with 20 backing vocals, right? It's a cluster. She's built it up from 20 tracks to get this big thick texture. We want to deal with it as just a backing vocals track, right? A stereo pair. So that's a really clear example of where we could get all that 20 BV tracks of individual passes that she's done and group them together under a BV submaster, and then we would just have this one fader where we could just deal with the BVs as a block, right? And once we dealt with those BVs, we might go, well, we want to EQ them, right? So we want them brighter, duller, you know, whatever, or we want reverb on them, we want to put the BVs out the back. Okay, well, we'll create a send off that submaster and then put the BVs out the back. Or we want a delay on the BVs, well, we do it at submaster level and the BVs will repeat, or something like that. We're doing, the BVs are conceptually one instrumental block, but they're made out of 20 constituent tracks because she's doubled herself and sung 3-part harmonies and whatever. So that's a super clear example of this idea of not wanting to deal in some cases with the forest of individual tracks, but you're wanting to deal with something at that next level up. These are the BV masters. So hopefully that describes the logic of subgroups. And pretty much all professional mixers, not pretty much, all professional mixers create submasters in their mixes. There wouldn't be a single person you could find in the industry that doesn't do this, right? And then, of course, not only can you ride the level at this level or solo or whatever, you can also apply EQ and compression. So if we wanted to, let's say, put some EQ across all of the drums, let's just use an EQ7, and we know that this drum submaster where we've just put the EQ is across 3 drum parts, you know, drums, JK, hats and the boom kick, right? So when we put an EQ at this level, it's affecting all of those 3 source tracks, right? So okay, so that EQ is affecting everything that's going up under that sub master. Likewise, if we wanted to provide, you know, put some compression on it, then same deal. We just find the, or is it the Pro compressor? Yeah. Okay, so that compression is over the whole, all 3 drum tracks, okay? All right, so this is kind of, you can apply global compression at this level, you know, and to anything else. I mean, if I wanted to, I mean, I don't need to, but if I wanted to put all the synths through a reverb, then I could create a send at this level, just go to the reverb send, and I'm creating a send at the submaster level, which means that, you know, that's a global reverb send for all of the synths in the mix, which happen to be 6, I think, tracks there. Yeah, so all of these. Okay, so, you know, that's a global effect send across the whole bank of synths. So you can do things at this mid-level, and this gives you an idea of this way of being able to process tracks at subgroup level using folder tracks. I'll just create a final one here for my effects returns. Effects return master. Okay, make that green. All right, so I've now got my tracks and I've reduced them right down to these sort of much more contained blocks that are functioning at the mid-level of the mix. And what's interesting about this is that in a way it gets you thinking about how music works or how mixes work, because, you know, we're talking about, you know, all of these individual tracks being, you know, every single microphone that we had or every single double that we did and so on. But ultimately what they're doing is they're feeding up into the sort of this mid-level, which is, well, they're all drums, you know, or they're all basses, or they're all keyboard parts or they're all backing vocals. So, and when I'm thinking about the music, I'm thinking about the drums, the backing vocals. I'm not thinking about the kick. You know, I mean, I might be thinking about the kick snare or whatever, or you know, the third harmony or the fifth harmony or whatever. But ultimately, there is a way I want to engage with this mix, which is just at that mid-level of the structure, where I'm actually just trying to balance between all of the blocks of sound, not the forest of individual elements within the mix. Okay, and also deal with things as sort of blocks or groups rather than as individuals. You know, I'm not going to put 20 reverbs on the backing vocals if I want the backing vocals to have some reverb on them, right? So on and so forth. So that's the concept of subgrouping. That's the concept of executing it in Pro Tools with these things called folder tracks. And you can do this in your own mixes. And you can see how it just makes it easier also to look at when I'm not working on something. I can sort of hide it, right? So if I'm working on the synths and I just want to work on the synths, I can just have them out while I'm working on them, and then when I've finished working on the synths, I can put them away, you know, and work on something else. You can imagine that if I had, 60 or 80 tracks in this mix, that this ability to sort of concertina in and out detail is pretty important when I'm not wanting to scroll massively around my screen through endless channels to find what it is that I want to work on. It means I can just have the area of the mix that I'm working on, the detail of that area in front of me at any one time, and then put it away and then open another area, just like a folder on when you're looking at files on a hard drive. You don't want to look at every single file individually. You put stuff in folders, right? Then you open folders and find things inside folders, and then you close them back in. Similar idea, but with audio.